All right, we'll stay with this particular story and speak to political analyst Dr. Sysman Motloung. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. You and I have chatted about Parliament for quite some time now, and its oversight. And I wonder, when you are looking at this 11-member committee, do you think it's actually going to do the work it's supposed to do? And can we see it having a bit more teeth than some committees we've seen in Parliament?
Yeah, I think there is that skepticism about the ad hoc committees and the kind of outcomes they will have in terms of bringing actual change on the ground. And we always have to have hope that something different will happen. Over some long time, we have seen a very politicized committee processes where the committee presents a report to the National Assembly, and because of the majoritarian support that ANC had, they would often neglect this. But we can see over time there also has been significant reports or committee work that led to change. Like when you look at the protection of personal information, it is something that is operational today. So we do see that committees can be effective, and currently I think most will be very alert in terms of producing something substantial, because the issue of security in South Africa is critical, and I don't think these political parties, even ANC itself, would want to be seen as one that is a gatekeeper or really a hindrance to the kind of reforms that are needed.
Yeah, and one would then ask, right, that you have now the commission that's coming, and of course we did hear from its chairperson Nhlanhla that in fact it is now working. But at the same time, then there is this particular process. One wonders, are they not going to be processes that are running parallel on a matter that could be dealt with by one, possibly?
Yeah, it is possible that there will be parallels there. It could be Motloung who has to testify on both platforms. But when you listen to Parliament's argument is that, remember, we have a separation of powers. This Judicial Commission of Inquiry is something that is mandated by the executive, but the legislature or legislative function in Parliament has to also do something in this given circumstance. So they want to assert themselves as a parliament that is effective instead of surrendering that agency to the executive, especially now. It is the executive that are implicated. So in a sense, I think Parliament wants to be seen being responsive in this regard. But yes, definitely there would be some parallels in the process.
Is it too little, too late, or can the institution still salvage its reputation? I ask this because when you listen to the chairperson, right, of that committee, Lekganyane, he speaks about something that is important, which is about the fact that when you look at different surveys, Afrobarometer, for example, speaks about how trust by the people in public institutions is dwindling. At the same time, you look at the Zondo Commission's report, it casts a spotlight on the lack of effective oversight by Parliament. So one would then ask, are they, in your view, likely to be able to redeem themselves, or is it too little, too late?
They can redeem themselves. I don't think there's anything late in politics, especially in this process of state formation. When we've seen a long episode of a state capture, and some would want to think the executive have gone to an extent of capturing the judiciary. So when there is a little trust that is now extending to the judiciary, it is important to restore that confidence. So this is a very important process to implement. And when that report comes to the National Assembly and it is endorsed, depending on the findings and recommendations that they make, Parliament has to ensure that it's vocal about following up on this report, ensure that it is implemented. And that could be even the start of reforming the system or really rebuilding again. As with any maybe natural processes, there is a rise and fall, a decline or re-emergence. So we can look at this as an opportunity of reviving law and order in our country.
Some have expressed skepticism given the political party that the chairperson belongs to. Is it warranted?
I think it is warranted, and if you listen to the members in that committee, they say this was an opportunity for you, ANC, to say, we don't want to be in this position. Let another party take over, for that to be seen as if there is a kind of neutrality. Let's look first at that committee that was looking on higher education, how that chairperson was behaving. Let's look at the committee that was looking at Mkhwanazi's case, how the chairperson was behaving. You do see that there is some partisanship in how these chairpersons work. Therefore, if there was somebody neutral, it could have started maybe to boost confidence in this. And you look at how the meeting started today and the kind of nuance insinuations that came, especially from one of the law advisors, legal advisors into that committee. You already see, something is starting to boil already, and we haven't started. So if it was somebody who's neutral, I think that could have made a big difference. But again, we listened to Mr. Malema. I don't know if that was respect to the senior to say, we don't have an issue with you. We have an issue with the ANC. So I think ANC, to provide leadership, may have acceded this position to other parties.
So it sounds to me like whichever way it goes, or whatever happens, this is a chairperson who's got a fine line to walk, right? Because whatever decision he makes, whatever inferences he draws, he's now going to be under a microscope, essentially.
Yes, definitely. And I think it would be prudent of him to appear as somebody who's sober and somebody who's really balanced, because we should not forget, this is one of the first steps. When this committee is done, it will not be a committee and findings that are made by the chairperson. These other parties are there. If they dissent, they will be on record. This report will have to go to the National Assembly to be endorsed in that space again. So in that arena, there is still again that issue of majority of the ANC, but you were happy now because ANC does not have that super majority it used to have. Opposition parties can come together if they feel the report is really valid. They can overturn ANC if ANC is seen as a barrier here. So we'll have to wait for that report and the findings, the recommendations, and then we see which political parties vote in which direction.
And it can then go to the courts, like we've seen with some other reports then briefly.
Yes, definitely. I think it would go to that extent when the other political parties feel whatever is being endorsed here was not what needed to be. But the court cannot override necessarily what the National Assembly is doing. Remember that fine line of overstepping, if the judiciary is overstepping into the legislative arena. So you have to allow Parliament to exercise its power, like what happened in the Pala inquiry. So we may find if a certain majority feels they want to block this, they can succeed. And then what hope we have now is to go to that judicial inquiry, see what happens there. And again, we go to the Zondo Commission outcomes. There can still be obstacles. So the big issue is all these institutions, the executive and legislature, should now try to ensure that whatever evidence they have that is concrete, they act on it to see a different picture coming from this, instead of repeating the old ways. If they repeat the old ways, it will further dampen that public trust in these institutions, and that will really threaten the kind of the quality of democracy that we have. So they have to be very cautious in this process.
Let's see if they will heed that advice. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. That was Sysman Motloung, Dr. Sysman Motloung there, who's a political analyst.